Welcome to the 2020 League of Women Voters Annual Spring Candidates Night. In this rather surreal pandemic time, we are presenting a virtual event with much appreciated technical assistance from Walpole Media TV. My name is Nancy Farris, and I am a member of the Westwood Walpole Dedham League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan, multi-issue organization whose purpose is to encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. It supports neither party nor person, but strives to inform the voters as to issues and the qualifications of candidates. This year, there are 2 town-wide races on the ballot and contests in every precinct for representative town meeting, except precincts 2, 4, and 8. We will be presenting a debate via Zoom on this program between the 2 candidates for the select board. Candidates for the Sewer and Water Commission were invited to provide taped messages to introduce themselves and clarify issues before the commission. All candidates for representative town meeting from contested precincts were invited to provide a brief introductory video, which will be included at the end of this program. We are indebted to the Walpole Media TV for producing this virtual event. It is being taped and scheduled to be aired several times prior to Election Day on Walpole cable stations and on demand on UT2 Walpole Media. Election Day is Saturday, June 27th. The polls will be open from 8 to 5 p.m. Please note the change in the closing time. Applications for early voting and absentee ballots are available now at the town clerk's website or by sending a written request to the clerk's office at Town Hall. The select board format will include 2-minute introductory comments from each candidate, followed by a series of questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer, and each will be then given time for a 2-minute closing at the end. Our moderator, again this year, is Sue Flykop, an active member and past president of the Newton League of Women Voters. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Nancy. We have 2 candidates, as Nancy mentioned. We have Tom Brown and Mark Gallivan, and we'll start with opening statements in alphabetical order. So Tom Brown, to you, 2 minutes, please.
I am Tom Brown. Thank you for inviting me tonight to this forum. I am running for selectman, and I believe in less taxes, more fiscal accountability, and full transparency at all times in our local government. I believe we can better run our town by offering innovative solutions such as implementing zero-based budgeting, looking into joining the state retirement system and state GIC healthcare system, and more aggressively invest our OPEB budgetary funds through better, diverse, and higher yielding investments available in a trust fund. The end result would be in millions of dollars in tax savings for you, the citizens of Walpole. Meanwhile, my opponent has mismanaged our town government by voting for the maximum tax levy every single year. It continues to increase our out-of-control annual budget on non-essential projects, even during these troubling and challenging times caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, when the town had to furlough 80 employees. The town has millions of dollars in unused short-term surpluses just sitting in unrestricted cash accounts, stabilization accounts, and enterprise accounts, and capital expenditure accounts, all of which could be used as opposed to increasing our taxes to the max every year, as my opponent continually does. My opponent also has breached his fiduciary responsibilities by violating our public trust by taking part in numerous political scandals, covering up for his friends and political allies during his entire time holding office. I humbly ask for your support and vote Saturday, June 27th, and together we can turn our town around by voting for me, Tom Brown, as your next selectman. Let's make Walpole a better place to live, and it's time for new leadership who will serve you, the taxpayer, instead of my opponent's political beliefs that family and friends come first. Thank you, and I am Tom Brown, candidate for Walpole Town Selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mark Gallivan, 2 minutes to you, please.
Thank you. Tom, it'll come as no surprise that I disagree with almost everything you said.
Of course you do.
Good evening to the League of Women Voters. Thank you for having me on, and the voters. I've been a resident of Walpole and a taxpayer for 25 years. I've put in a lot of volunteer time over the years, 9 years as a select board member, 6 years on finance committee, 12 years as an RTM, past president of Walpole Youth Soccer, Walpole Computer Foundation, and 15 years as a mentor for the Walpole Robotics team. I have 25 years experience in business as a management and IT consultant, as well as having my own company. As you can tell from my volunteer work, I'm not somebody who can sit on the sidelines and complain about how things are when there's work to be done. I'm the type of person who likes to engage with others, form a consensus, and solve problems. I work hard to be a member of a team and to make good things happen. We've accomplished a lot over the last 5 years. We've cleaned up a Superfund site on South Street. We've built a new police station, fire station, and council on aging. And most importantly, we built up our reserves over the last 5 years, which are very valuable to have right now during the financial recession and the COVID crisis. I'm also a graduate of Boston College. I have 3 main objectives going forward as a select board member. I know people are suffering due to the financial hardship of the recession as well as the COVID crisis. One is to maintain important services and the safety of the residents of Walpole. I work for all the residents, the seniors, the residents, the business owners, and the children. Number 2, proactive financial security. What we've been doing right now and what we'll continue to do is to tighten up our budgets. No panic needed. We have reserves. We'll put those reserves to use when we need them. I'm glad we've built them up over the last 5 years, and we'll work with the state and federal government to get whatever monies are available to deal with this financial and COVID crisis. My third point is strong schools, adequate funding, continue to work on the middle school with the MSBA, and I am a supporter of free full-day kindergarten. All my career, I've been involved with technology and business and working with people. For over 25 years, I've helped put budgets together for my business, for the town. I take a long-term perspective on assets and infrastructure and the importance of building up reserves. I've worked hard during recession years, 1990 through 91, 2007 through 2009, and the recession that has already begun. I also understand the role of the state, the town, and the federal government, and how we can work together to get some of those disaster funds into Walpole. I'm good at reaching out and working with lots of different types of people to accomplish goals that are hard to accomplish. I think Walpole has a huge challenge right now with the economy and the COVID crisis. I'm committed to Walpole. I'm hardworking, I'm experienced, I'm accessible, and I'm open. I'd like to continue to work for Walpole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallivan. Before we go to our first question, I just want to remind the candidates, when traditional and league forums is that we ask the candidates to stay focused on your own positions and policies in response to our questions, and to not have any personal attacks or characterize your opponent in any way. So with that said, Mr. Gallivan, we're going to start our next question with you.
Sure.
The first question is about the budget. With the ramifications of the ongoing pandemic, how would you specifically prioritize changes to the budget? For example, balancing salaries versus layoffs or reduction in force? What personnel, services, etc. would you consider foregoing? Would you consider using free cash or stabilization funds or other options to keep from always using the 2.5% tax levy to the max going forward?
Thank you. I think, I'll talk about the fiscal 21 budget right now, which is the process we're involved in. We're tightening up on spending. The only 2 new positions that we put forward are 2 for police and 2 for fire. Those are really needed. We're tightening up on our expansion as well as new positions in other areas. We've recognized that our revenues will drop to some degree. We don't know how much. State revenues we're anticipating will be dropping by about 10%. We've also put a pause on some spending that we've been doing over the last 5 years. For example, OPEB, other post-employment benefits, and the stabilization fund. We've put those on hold this year, as we may potentially need to be using stabilization, if not in fiscal 21, but in fiscal 22. I think it's important. We have furloughed people. I'd like to see those people come back as the schools start to open up. As we look ahead to the next fiscal year,
30 seconds.
Less clear. Did you say 30 seconds? The picture is less clear as we really don't know what will happen to state and federal revenues that year. We have a pretty good picture for this year. So I think it's a matter of tightening up, continuing the important things that are going on in the town of Walpole, the services, schools for seniors, and keeping the town running for the citizens.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brown, to you, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
So with the ramifications of the ongoing pandemic, how would you specifically prioritize changes to the budget? For example, balancing salaries versus layoffs or reduction in force? What personnel, services, et cetera, would you consider foregoing? Would you consider using free cash or stabilization funds or other options to keep from always using the 2.5% tax levy to the max going forward? So 1.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Well, during the Corona crisis here that we're currently all going through, there's been many people laid off from their jobs. Many people may not even go back to their jobs. So the governor has come out and recommended to towns and cities that they should adopt a 1/12 budget. And instead, my opponent, Mark Gallivan, has approved a $4 million above last year's budget to the town of Walpole. It's almost like business as usual. And he's also approved $3.5 million to a non-essential project, the ball fields up on Route 1A across from the state prison. So, like I said in my opening statement, I believe we can better offer the town some saving solutions by implementing zero-based budgeting. We can also use the stabilization funds and free cash to possibly lower people's property taxes, okay? Especially, I would say at least for the next 2 quarters.
30
See
seconds.
what happens with the economy. See if it bounces back. During this crisis, I have volunteered 3 months, 7 days a week with the Mass Military Support Foundation, feeding veterans and their families. 3 million meals we've given out in 3 months throughout New England. I've done this every single day down at Gillette Stadium. Okay, so I think we can definitely tighten our belts around here. It's business as usual with Mark Gallivan. I would like to see him or even hear him tell everybody where he has proposed cost-saving articles or any ideas that he's brought to the table to lower our tax burden. He's never done it, ever.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I'm going to remind the candidates to keep focused on what your position is and
Mark Gallivan's record is up for
Mr.
debate.
Brown, your time is up. Mr. Gallivan, your name was mentioned. Would you like a 30-second rebuttal?
Sure, I think it's important for Tom to talk about what he would do rather than just complain about what I've done or what he thinks I've done. And I think that is important as we go forward with this debate.
Okay, Mr. Brown, you have 30 seconds.
I just did. Where have you saved the taxpayers' money? Where?
Susan,
Go
here
ahead,
it
Mark,
is.
All
answer it.
right,
You
let's
need to
move
put
on
him
to
on
the
hold.
next
You
question.
need to put him on, turn off his voice if he's going to
Let's
ramble
move on
on.
to the next question, gentlemen.
Oh,
Mr. Brown,
that's rambling.
Mr. Brown, the next question to you. Are you both ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is about housing. There has been a lot of new, this is to Mr. Brown first. There
Okay,
has a lot of new construction of housing in Walpole, and we still do not have the 10% affordable housing necessary to take control of our needs. What are your thoughts about how to treat housing goals? For example, inclusionary zoning on the spring warrant, zoning changes to allow multifamily housing in new areas, density bonuses in exchange for affordable housing, or other ideas? To you, Mr. Brown.
I have other ideas on that. When I moved to Walpole 22 years ago, it was a small town. As of late, it's starting to feel like a small city, okay, with these big, massive apartment buildings. Apartment buildings are not the answer for affordable housing, okay? Back when the soldiers came back from World War II and Vietnam, there was an initiative to build affordable homes, a real home that a person would own. There is no ownership in apartment buildings. So I would like to see smaller homes with real property that people could buy and have actual ownership instead of building massive apartment buildings that just are not going to work. Not in Walpole. It's going to destroy this town.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Gallivan, to you, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I have it. So the Walpole Select Board did appoint an affordable housing partnership committee. I think they're doing a great job taking a look at what it will take to get us up to the 10% affordable housing, which I think is very important. One of the problems that we have right now is because we're not at 10%, we have a big 40B that's proposed down on Summer Street in South Walpole that's going to go in. Most of it will be apartments. There will be some either condos or homes, which I like better than straight apartments. So part of it is we need a bigger spectrum of housing available for people, some of which is affordable, more affordable than what's in town right now, as well as to be able to fight off future really large 40B projects. There's also a couple of small 40B projects going in, which I like a lot better because they fit in better with the neighborhoods. I think it will give the people that live there a bigger experience. The two big apartment complexes downtown, they're building by right. We as a town did not have any say over those. They are near the train station, which is good. If we can encourage those people to take the train into Boston and not be driving around, I think that's a good thing. It's also good for all of our businesses downtown, the restaurants, businesses, stores. There'll be 500 or 1,000 more people living in the downtown area that can walk over, which I think is a good thing. It will make downtown much more walkable.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, the next question is to you first.
Sure.
And it is about management. How would you plan to manage the large buildings in Walpole Center and South Walpole, as you just mentioned, concerning traffic, police, water, and fire safety, etc.? What changes in the status quo do you foresee?
So there's two big issues here. The first is the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board doesn't really have any say over where big apartment complexes get built. That's all about the zoning table. The zoning table that exists determines what can be built and where it can be built. And depending on the type of project, it falls under the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Planning Board. One of the things that we've tried to do is encourage a rewrite of the zoning table to help determine where we would like certain types of structures. Walpole zoning does not apply to 40B projects like the 300 units planned down in South Walpole or the one that's on Route 1 that was built, 12 years ago. So I think it's a matter of making downtown better. We've been talking about and have a plan to do better parking, more signs, try to make it much more walkable once you're downtown. But I think it's a process and we're in the middle of that process. And I think that will continue for several years.
30 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, a minute and a half to you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
So this is about management. How would you plan to manage the large buildings in Walpole Center and South Walpole concerning traffic, police, water, and fire safety, etc.? What changes in the status quo do you foresee?
I would have to say I think our infrastructure is going to take a big hit. with these developments. Okay, traffic is just going to be. I don't think they thought about the traffic control in downtown. It's going to be awful. People are already talking about it. They can't get out of town now, and they're not even occupied. So I would have to say I think we're going to be forced to expand our police departments, fire department, and spend millions of dollars in infrastructure to support those buildings. I think it was poor planning. So I just, I'm not for the 40B project down in South Walpole. I think it's going to bring down property values for those people down there. And as my opponent has also approved on a commercial building on North Street, what did he do to stop that? I think they're going to open up North Street for future development. Once one's in, they're all going
30 seconds.
So I think I'm good with that.
Okay, Mr. Gallivan, you were referred to. Would you like a rebuttal? Would you like 30 seconds?
Sure, the building on North Street is something, it's a daycare center, and daycare centers are allowed by right under the Dover Amendment. I think it's important that just because we'd like something not to happen, people, business owners have rights. We have attempted in the past to fight those kind of things and spent large amounts of money with lawyers. When you look at case law, for example, with the Dover Amendment, the towns almost always lose, a very, very high percentage. So I was not in favor of a very large childcare
30
center. I think a
seconds.
much smaller scope would have been better, but it is what it is, and we didn't really have a choice in that one.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, would you like another 30 seconds?
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right, then Mr. Brown, then this next question goes to you first.
Yeah.
And it is about personal traits. As you reflect on so many important issues facing the Select Board and the town of Walpole, what do you bring to the solutions in terms of useful abilities and experience? What are important ways in which the Select Board could be improved?
I would have to say my time that I served in the United States Marine Corps, I gained a very strong leadership abilities. I have no problem holding people accountable for their actions and for not doing their jobs. I bring innovative ideas. I have no problem bringing things to the table that we can all discuss. And back when I was on the Water and Sewer Commission, I was able to lower proposed water and sewer rate increases by using retained earnings and talking to my fellow commissioners and getting them to agree with me. I just think I have a natural leadership ability as a United States Marine and a veteran.
Great, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, a minute and a half to you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay, as you reflect on so many important issues facing the Select Board and the town of Walpole, what do you bring to the solutions in terms of useful abilities and experience? What are important ways in which the Select Board could be improved?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say I know Tom was a Marine, and I appreciate his service. And I've heard you and I've seen you on Facebook that you've been doing a lot of work with veterans, feeding the veterans, and I think that's really great. I think one of my best traits is I am able to work with lots of people to form a consensus on things that need to be done. That encompasses not only the Select Board, but working with all the other boards in town and other interested parties. I think I'm also able to get things finished. I have the focus and ability to bear down on things and get things going. I'll use one example. We talked for 20 years about a council on aging. It was in town hall in the old cafeteria from a school built in the 50s. And although we talked about it forever, we were able to form a coalition of people that came together and got that done. So I would continue to do what I do now, which is to work with lots of people, reach out to others, form a consensus. Everyone I talk to doesn't have to have the same opinion as me. And as an example, to get the Council on Aging bill,
30 seconds.
we had to get lots of people with differing opinions about the size and the scope of a council, whether it's needed, where it may be, to sort of come together and agree on sort of terms as to what we can do. And we were able to accomplish that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, the next question is to you first, and it's about the schools. What are your thoughts on the plans for future school buildings and organization, combined middle school, new high school, etc.? Will you support a recommendation from the committee charged with the responsibility of working through various possible plans, and why or why not?
So the answer is yes. I will support whatever proposal they bring forward, which I hope is for a new middle school, although it could also be for a major renovation to the Bird Middle School. I think they're on the right track. They're working with the MSBA, which is the School Building Authority. By working with them, they'll help us determine what we need for our middle schoolers, as well as give us guidelines for what a school could look like. And most importantly, they'll participate by giving us a percentage of the cost of design and construction to reimburse that. I think the middle schools, which were both built about 60 years ago, are woeful and inadequate. They have been maintained, but those buildings were never designed for modern learning, collaborative learning, learning with computers and Wi-Fi. And I think, whether we do a major renovation or whether we build a new building or renovate what we have,
30 seconds.
I think we can really improve things for the middle school kids in Walpole.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brown, the question to you, would you like me to read it again?
No, that's okay. I would have to say during these troubling times that we don't know what is going to happen in the future, okay? To go and try to spend millions and millions, $100 million on a new high school, and we don't know what's going to happen with our economy. We're on the verge of a depression, okay? It's a possibility. There's many people that are going to be out of work. There's people that are hurting now in town. How can they talk about spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on new schools? Let's renovate them, rebuild them a little bit. Let's see what happens. We need to put it on hold, table it, and see what happens with the economy. We need to go forward slowly, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. This next question is to you first, and it's also about the schools.
Okay.
At the other end of the age range, 305 out of 351 towns and cities in Massachusetts provide tuition-free full-time kindergarten for their students. Is it time for Walpole to figure out a way to provide full-day kindergarten for all, and why or why not?
I believe we visited that and it passed, so we're doing it incrementally. So we are going to get there. So yeah, it's going to happen. Free full-day kindergarten is definitely on the table. It's going to happen. We already visited it.
Okay.
It's going to happen. Nothing I can do about it. It's going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, to you, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I fully support the idea of full free kindergarten. I think it's not like the old days when I was a kid where, you blew bubbles in the backyard and played in the dirt on the side of the building. Kids really actually start to learn a lot in kindergarten that they carry right into first grade. And the kids that only go to kindergarten half of the day, really start off behind where the full day K kids are, and not everyone can afford it. So I've been behind that all along. We're moving incrementally to get there. We've made great strides in the last couple of years. So I am a supporter.
Okay, thank you. This next question is to you, Mr. Gallivan, first. And it's about green communities. It's a long one, so just hang on there. The town is being asked to pursue becoming a green community. Walpole is completely surrounded, with the exception of Rentham, by communities who have already become registered green communities and are taking advantage of hundreds of thousands of dollars available for upgrading energy infrastructure. On the books since 2010, some 271 communities are ahead of us in line for helpful annual grants. Town meeting will be asked again to approve building stretch zoning to comply with green community requirements. Many of its aspects, which builders opposed in the past, are now regulated anyway, requiring housing to be built with efficiency in mind. Why do you think Walpole tends to lag behind in taking advantage of these opportunities? And would you see the value in anticipating and embracing such programs?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the Green Communities program. I think historically Walpole has shied away from that because a lot of the things that were part of that program were not in the building code. The building code has been revised fairly recently. And most of the issues that the builders had issues with are now part of the standard building code in Massachusetts. I think that Walpole can do a lot with the Green Communities Act. I think it's important to do that, and I'm in favor of it. I know that it's come up a couple of times, and I think this time there's finally enough energy behind it to get it to pass at town meeting when it comes up.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brown, to you, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Well, my profession, I am in the heating and air conditioning business, and I do promote high efficiency type heating and air conditioning equipment. There are incentives through state programs for homeowners to buy or get assistance to get higher efficiency heating and air conditioning equipment. The town, on the other hand, we just went through 3 huge building projects with the police station, fire station, and the senior center. Are those green buildings? Are they were they built to be as efficient as the state is now requiring construction to be done at? I don't think so. So we missed the boat on that. Moving forward, if we do build a new middle school, I would definitely want it to be a green qualified building. I think we can move further on down the energy conservation with like
30
LED
seconds.
street lights, make our municipal buildings more energy efficient. I would like to ask Mr. Gallivan why he didn't call for the new buildings to be green certified when they built those.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, your name was brought up. Would you like 30 seconds to respond?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the issues that we had when we built those buildings, first of all, they're very close to being LEED certified. Not everything on the checklist were we willing to do and pay money to get certified, but those buildings are very green. I do want to point out that Mr. Brown was one of those people who was against building the buildings in the first place. So one of the things is we had some pretty tight budget requirements on all of those buildings as it worked its way through town meeting into construction.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, do you want 30 more seconds?
Yes. Mr. Gallivan said that that they built these buildings and without an override and stuff like that. But can Mr. Gallivan explain to the citizens of Walpole how it was done without a 2.5 override, but at the same time doubling our town budget? I mean, debt to over $110 million. When prior to the projects, it was at 50 million.
So I'll remind you that at the end of these questions, you'll each have an opportunity to pose a question to each other. So if it's
Well,
okay
I think
with you, I'm
he
gonna
made
ask
a reference to how we built them responsibly.
Okay, so that can be your question at the end, but right
I
now,
have a different question at the end.
okay, well, we have a number of topics that I want to make sure that we cover.
Mhm.
So let's get to the next one. Mr. Brown, this question will be to you first.
Okay.
About the Community Preservation Act. The Community Preservation Act is another opportunity which allows municipalities to set aside money for preserving free space, historical resources, affordable housing, and recreational areas. Half of the communities in Massachusetts have already signed up for this initiative. Again, Walpole seems to be lagging behind. Could you be a positive agent in researching this opportunity?
I have looked into it, and it's just another tax on top of your property tax. The Community Preservation Act it's kind of a washed up act. It's no longer being used. It's not profitable. The money is being mismanaged. So I'm not a fan of the Community Preservation Act.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Nope. Community Preservation Act actually is a great program that a lot of towns are using. to help them purchase, land with green space. We could have used it had we had that program in place on the new ball fields on Route 1. I think it is a good program. Walpole's debated it on and off over the last, 15 or 20 years, and it's never really gained any traction. I am in favor of that. And if it comes back up as a possible project or an idea, I would be in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, this next question to you about government structure. In light of the ever more complicated issues facing Massachusetts communities, would you consider having some kind of more efficient representative town council and town manager rather than town meeting? Is it time for Walpole to initiate a charter review, and why or why not?
Sure, I would say that I really like the town meeting, the representative town meeting process that we go through. When you think about budgeting, it starts with the town administrator. It works its way through finance committee, capital budget, but the ultimate people who decide are the 150 members of town meeting. And I actually think that's a really good way to run things. It is a little different than most of the country. New England seems to really like their town meetings, where in most other parts of the country, you do see a city council or a town council with a town manager. But I like the programs that we have, and I like the power that the RTMs have to make all the final decisions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, to you, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay. I'm actually a town meeting member, and I am definitely in favor of town meeting. I believe more people that have an input into decisions in the town are better. So it's good to have discussions with many town meeting members and see where they stand. And I like the voting process on issues instead of just having a small group of people pass initiatives. I like the bigger group to do it. So yes, I'm definitely in favor of town meeting, and I would not want to do away with that.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Brown, this next question is to you first about communication. Communication and accountability among boards, committees, and commissions is difficult at best. What suggestions might you have to improve these issues and improve public knowledge and understanding of actions and decisions? Perhaps encourage more citizens to volunteer on behalf of the municipality.
I believe transparency and accountability are paramount in town government. Okay. Might not like it, but there's issues going on in town where transparency was really non-existent until I found a executive session minutes online, and so I have the unredacted version, which is here, Mark. Right? You know what this is all about, Mark? And then we got the redacted version, right? So transparency is not happening right now in our town government. There's a lot of things being swept under the rug, and there's been Mark's tenure as a selectman, many years of non-accountability. He has a problem with that. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Gallivan, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I completely disagree with the things that Tom just said. I also believe in transparency and accountability. I also believe in the state ethics law and the importance of executive session and keeping things in the executive session mode. I know one of the select people talked about executive session information, and unfortunately, some notes were appended to the back of a regular session agenda, which is unfortunate. They were notes that were not in final form, that didn't capture the true elements of what was going on. So I would just say I believe in transparency and accountability. I believe in the state ethics law. I think we work very hard to be open and transparent. Our meetings are all open. We have the ability to let people come in and ask questions. And I, as well as most of the other select board members and other board members, I'm very available to talk to people and to meet with individuals or with groups to talk about any issues. I think it's important not to just make things up. I think it's important to stick to real facts, and that's what I try to do.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Gallivan, this next question is to you first. This is actually the last question I have.
Whoa.
Do you want 30 seconds?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Gallivan, if you're such a fan of transparency and accountability, I had put in a request for the Freedom of Information for information regarding the Chris McKenzie separation for the town. Would you approve those that request?
So Tom, it sounds like you don't understand, I'm not a Freedom of Information officer for the town of Walpole. So that request needs to be routed through the town. There's somebody who's approved by the state to do that. And I'm sure they'll get you whatever information is available that should be disclosed according to state regulations.
Did you call for the town clerk to release that information? Like the last request that we did took 5 months to get that information. The town denied it 3 times. We had to go to the Secretary of State to get it released. What do you have to hide?
Mr. Gallivan, do you want to respond to that? And then we'll move on to one more question.
I would just say I don't know I haven't seen any of these requests. I don't know anything about them. So I'm just not going to comment any further.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go to our last question. Mr. Gallivan, you're first. What aspects, if any, of this surreal pandemic time might you consider to be positives, which could be carried forward into the future of the town of Walpole?
I think on a personal level, probably the number one thing that has been good about the pandemic is the amount of time I've been able to spend with my family. You know, as the kids got older, I moved out of the house, don't see them as often. And I think, you know, that's been a good thing. A lot of our neighbors are commenting on the same thing. I think for the town, there's not a lot of good things about the pandemic. I think it is making people think a little bit more about what's happening and how we do it. I'm looking forward to town hall opening up and our meetings, our board meetings to be able to be had in person. People want to come in and speak to be able to come in person. I think we're all getting used to Zoom, but Zoom is not a good substitute for actually interacting with real people and, you know, having a chance to talk things out. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
What aspects, if any, of this surreal pandemic time might you consider to be positives, which could be carried forward into the future of the town of Walpole?
I don't see anything positive about the pandemic, honestly. Nothing. The only, well, just recently, the good thing that happened here was the parade for the graduating senior class at Walpole High. It was really a good event. And it was nice to see all the people out there and hundreds of cars and all the kids having a great time. I think a parade following a real graduation would be good. I mean, a lot of people made comments about that. And I had the opportunity to stand down on Common Street and watch it. It was really good. So I think a positive thing would be the parade that we just had for the graduating class of 2020. Yeah, nothing good happened here with the pandemic. Many businesses shut down. People lost their jobs. I mean, it's just not good.
Okay, thank you. And so now, for our viewers, we've asked each candidate to prepare a question to ask their opponent. So Mr. Brown, let's start with you with your question first. So why don't you pose it to Mr. Gallivan, and then you'll have a chance to respond to his answer. Okay?
In my hand, I have an agreement that you, Mr. Gallivan, signed off on, allowing your fellow select person's husband a severance package, and he is currently being charged with a sexual assault, and that's pending in court. You also allowed him to be on full paid administrative leave without firing him and letting him go through the arbitration system to get his money. You signed a very lucrative deal for him to get all his money, back pay, everything, okay? And that's just horrendous. Where are you out there protecting women and the citizens of Walpole during this? You did nothing but circle the wagons to help your political ally. And I just want to know what you have to say about that. And I have the documents to prove all this. Okay, I have your signature on the on his compensation package. And you violated your very oath that you took when you decided to serve and protect the citizens of Walpole at all times.
So, Mr. Brown, can you clarify exactly what you're asking him to answer?
I want him to answer to the people of Walpole why he signed the document allowing Chris McKenzie to get a severance package instead of firing him, allowing him to go seek out a different way to get compensated if he was to win his case in the court of law.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Galvin, a minute and a half to you.
Sure, Tom, as you know, that matter is being prosecuted by the Nova County attorney. It's also a matter that's still covered under executive session. That's probably the reason you brought that up, is because you know I will not and cannot really comment on that. I think you've insinuated a bunch of things, talking about paperwork that are just not true. I think that in many ways,
That's not true.
Can you let him answer?
You make sure that you bring things up that may have an element of truth, but are in fact not correct. And you've done that in this case, and I'm not going to comment on it. It's there's a victim involved. It's being prosecuted, and it's still covered under executive session. So I would at least think that you would understand how executive session works, and that we can't comment on anything that's currently being prosecuted.
Wouldn't that fall under transparency?
Do you have any other comments, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Okay.
Mark, when I read the unredacted version that you inadvertently left online, you referred to the victim as a rat. Now she's a rat and a victim? I mean, really?
That's not true. That's a lie,
Oh,
Mr.
really?
Brown. Please stop lying.
It's right there, Mark.
Please
I'm gonna
stop.
highlight it for
All
you.
right, gentlemen, this is not necessarily helpful to the voters to determine what your
Yes,
position.
it is. This is the character of this guy right there.
You have made your point then, Mr. Brown.
Kidding me?
You have made
30 seconds.
It is time for us to move on. Mr. Galvin, what is your question for Mr. Brown?
So, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've worked hard to build up our reserve fund, stabilization, free cash, the revolving accounts for sewer and water, and some of the revolving accounts for like recreation and things like that. I know that Tom fought us on that every step of the way. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of stabilization funds in light of the coronavirus and the recession?
Okay, Mr. Brown, a minute and a half to you.
Well, obviously, Mark doesn't understand the recession or stabilization funds because he just keeps on taxing to the max year after year after year. He doesn't bring anything to the table to save the taxpayers any money, ever. If he can prove that, I would like him to actually tell us what he's brought to the table that he's got passed to save the taxpayers money. The irresponsible spending is just out of control. We're spending money on a ball fields project up on Route 1A during a pandemic. It's a non-essential project, okay? He just went and passed another $3.5 million during the pandemic on a non-essential project. And there was no out clause on it. Mark, how did you approve a contract without an out clause during a pandemic on a non-essential project? You're killing us taxpayers, you know what I'm saying? Every single year.
Okay, Mr. Brown. Thank you. Mr. Galvin, would you care to respond?
Sure. Tom, I think that you do nothing but complain. Town meeting approved that Fields project on Route 1. I know that you were against it, as were some others.
Where was the out clause, Mark?
Can you let
Please
him
stop.
finish, please?
So there,
There wasn't one.
if we wanted to cancel the project, I'm sure that we could.
No, you
The
couldn't.
project was more than
I read the
50%
contract.
Please stop talking over me, Mr. Brown.
I read the
I think it's
contract.
important to recognize the project was 50% complete. They were making good progress. The money and the borrowing were both approved by town meeting. And I thought it was in the best interest of the town to move ahead. If we stop and froze that project,
The $3.5 million wasn't
we
approved
would-
at town meeting.
Yes, it was. Actually,
No, it wasn't.
I wish you understood how town meeting worked, but town meeting approved borrowing for that project. We could either float a bond or we used a ban. I'm
You did a
sorry that you don't
short-term
understand
loan.
how town meeting works. But it was important for us to continue ahead, and we stopped the project. Ultimately, it would cost a lot more to restart it at a later
You
date.
would have been sued because you didn't have an out clause.
Will you please let Mr. Gallivan finish and then you can have a turn?
My God.
I think I'm done. I know he's going to keep talking over me.
Okay.
That's how a debate works.
Seconds more and then we're moving on. Anything you care to say, Mr. Brown?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. We are moving then to closing statements, and we're going to do it in reverse order than our opening statements. So, Mr. Gallivan, you are first then. 2 minutes to you for closing statements.
Sure. So everything I've talked about today is about keeping Walpole strong for the seniors, the residents, and the children, maintaining our services through the crisis. Maybe not every service, maybe not at the same level, but continuing to offer the critical services that we have in town. As you've heard me say, I'm not one to sit on the sidelines. I like to work with other people to solve problems. I don't like to listen to complainers who don't really actually want to accomplish anything, but it's important to me that we as a town band together and accomplish the goals that we want. I think one of the things that I've mentioned twice is the 3 goals: maintaining important services, proactively working on financial security for the town, tightening up our budgets without panicking. We can work our way through this, use some of our hard-earned reserves when we need to. I don't think we need to for fiscal year 21. We very much may need to for fiscal year 22, depending on what the state and federal government do. Also working with the state and the federal government for disaster funding. We will be able to get some money for the COVID crisis, which we're counting on. It will cost a small fortune to open the schools, be able to protect people, and we'll be able to get reimbursed for that kind of money. Also, strong schools. I'm still very much in favor of strong schools, adequate funding for the schools that exist. I'm not in favor of closing schools or laying off teachers or any of those kind of things. We can work our way through it. I am in favor of the MSBA process that we're going on in middle school. That's a long process. We're in year 1 of probably what will take 2 or 3 years to work our way through. But eventually that project, the board will make a recommendation on whether we build a new school or whether we refurbish the existing Bird Middle School. And I'm going to be in support of whatever they come up with. I also do support full and free kindergarten because it's essential for all students to be able to start off at the same point when they get to 1st grade. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gallivan. Mr. Brown, to you, 2 minutes, please.
Once again, I would like to thank you for inviting me tonight. I promise you that when I am elected, I will pursue less taxes and more responsible spending, along with more accountability and full transparency in our local town government at all times. My opponent, on the other hand, has told you tonight that he will even seek out the new taxes, okay, and more irresponsible spending. My opponent, on the other hand, has also put his family, friends, and political allies first, before you, the hardworking taxpayers, time and time again during his tenure as selectman. He has voted to spend and tax to the max every single year when he could have better managed our town government with more efficient and alternative responsible solutions that will introduce you to save taxpayers millions of dollars every single year. My opponent has also participated in numerous serious scandals over the years, protecting his political allies and friends, breaching his fiduciary responsibilities, and violating your public trust by failing to serve you and protect you, the law-abiding, hard-working, tax-paying residents of the town. This type of imprudent and irresponsible behavior that my opponent has been practicing for years must stop immediately. I am the candidate that will finally bring about the necessary important changes in our local town government that are long overdue. We now have the opportunity to right all the wrongs that my opponent has done to you and our town by not putting you first and not protecting your better well-being and interests. Let's move ahead together and make our community a much more affordable and better place to live. Our town at least owes you that much. We need to lower our taxes, improve our schools, take care of our elderly on fixed incomes, and help those who are in financial need by providing with a more efficient, better run form of government. We have to pursue state-of-the-art solutions and innovative programs to improve the way that our town runs. We must generate more revenue through alternative, more sensible ways other than taxing and spending to the max that my opponent believes in. I am Tom Brown, your
Aye.
candidate for selectman who will turn your town around. Once again, I ask humbly for your vote on Saturday, June 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. So thank you again to Walpole Media TV for their technical support in producing this program. Thank you as well to the League of Women Voters of Westwood, Walpole, and Dedham for putting on this program. An important reminder that Walpole's elections will take place on Saturday, June 27th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And please note that the change in closing time is 5 p.m. Early voting and absentee ballot applications are available now online at the town clerk's website or by sending a written request to the town clerk at Town Hall, 135 School Street. You are encouraged to vote, taking advantage of whichever option you prefer. There are 2 candidates here for Select Board, Tom Brown and Mark Gallivan, and you will vote for one. Remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Bill Abbott, and I'm running for re-election to the Board of Sewer and Water Commissioners. I've had the privilege of serving on this board for 25 years, and during those years, I've participated in projects that added new wells to our water system, increased storage with new water storage tanks, constructed 2 new water treatment plants, and we've upgraded some of our old unlined cast iron water mains to improve the water quality. And we've extended our sewer system into areas of town that have had failing septic systems. These experiences have given me a thorough understanding of the operations of both the water and sewer system, and equally important, have given me an understanding of the impact that these projects have had on our water and sewer rates. Over the years, I've successfully presented the board's projects to both the Finance Committee as well as to town meeting. And in addition, I've appeared before the Town of Sharon's Planning Board to make them aware of how their Route 1 commercial developments can and have impacted our water supply. During the current term, I've converted our water rates from a flat rate structure where all users paid the same rate regardless of how much water they used, converting the system to what's known as the inclining block rate structure. And under this structure, essential water use, which for residents is the water that they use in their home, is charged at a lower rate than non-essential water use, which is predominantly watering lawns. In addition, consumers of large amounts of water that put a burden on the system also pay at a higher rate. And the result of this change has been a benefit to most of our water ratepayers, as they are being charged at the lower rates. An issue that we're all currently facing is the COVID-19 virus. And I'm happy to say that the water and sewer operations have largely been unaffected. Prior to the emergency declaration, both departments acquired the personal protective equipment for the employees. They also stocked up on the water treatment chemicals that we use so that in case of the supply chain was disrupted, we'd be all set. They also did extensive cross-training of the employees so that if an employee had to be quarantined, our operations would not be interrupted. Also, they've rearranged our work procedures so that the employees were able to maintain proper social distancing. As the future is concerned, I think the largest issue facing the board will be supplying water for all the possible developments that can take place. We currently are able to supply the water for the projects that are currently underway, but as time passes, we're going to have to do things to extend our local sources so that we can supply them. However, at some point in the distant future, we will probably have to look to the MWA to supplement our local supply. In conclusion, I think that I've had a positive impact on both our water and sewer systems during my time on the board, and I hope to be able to continue this work. So with that, I respectfully request one of your 2 votes for Sewer and Water Commission at this upcoming town election. Thank you very much.
Hello, this is John Hassenjaeger. I'm a candidate for re-election to the Sewer and Water Commission of Walpole. I've served a previous 3-year term, and I'm looking for extension of that. My background, I'm currently had served on the Economic Development Commission of Walpole for 18 years, bringing tax base and infrastructure for new business into the town of Walpole. Prior to that, I was 19 years on the Capital Budget Committee and chairman for most of those years, and we did develop and fund most of the current water and sewer infrastructure systems that are now in place in the town of Walpole. So I'm intimately familiar with the financing and with the development of the current utility systems that we have in town. I think that's very important. People don't realize that the commissioner position requires planning skills, technical expertise, and evaluation of utility facilities and systems. We have a high responsibility for protecting the public health, providing long-term sustainability for community utilities, and for maintaining a welcoming residential environment and a viable business climate. I have these skills. I oversaw the budget. We have a rate hearing today, and we're had a reduction from the MWRA of 2.48% in our sewer side of our budget costs, so that's a good thing. We are accommodating some rate adjustments based on the flow of water and the use of water. And on the residential side, we're going to make some accommodations in the inclining block pricing system to create a sweet spot for the average home that will be paying less for water than they're paying now. And the heavy users and heavy business users will be paying slightly more. So that's the goal and that's the methodology. We're in the middle of that process, but not to be concerned. That is the goal of the Water Commission. As far as issues going on in town and questions that were asked, the project impacts of the building, all the multifamily projects in the CBD, Central Business District of Walpole. Essentially, those are safe. They're according to state safety standards, sprinkler standards, and those things are all controlled in the engineering and design and planning and approval stage with the State Department of Public Health and the State Safety and Fire Safety Commission. So there is no worry about the risks on that side. As far as the availability of water, which is the other question, we do have in our administration and our consultants have continuously told the public and the business community that we have plenty of water and water capacity. Contrary to what people believe, there's not an underground bucket that runs out of water. The water runs like an underground river continuously, and we have the ability to draw the water out. We have a scale of operations to meet the projections of the population and the business community of Walpole over a longer period of time. That's why forecasting and understanding business analysis and research analysis is important. We are expanding to some degree our water availability, and at the same time, we've been extremely successful in conserving water and protecting it. We won awards here recently for that from different state agencies. Walpole's been a leader in reducing leaks in the system as well as conserving water through people giving them rebates on their appliances and water using devices, plumbing fixtures, etc. On the issue of the 40B project in South Walpole, that will be studied. What people maybe don't realize is any of these projects, the hotels or any project, they have to provide an impact research program, explain the impacts on all the aspects of Walpole, and they have to hire outside consultants, and we work with those consultants to make sure not only that the impacts are mitigated so there is no net effect, but that we have positive linkages and positive improvements to our system as a result of those projects. So that's a closely woven arrangement between the town departments and the sewer and water and the consultants for the project proponents. So be rest assured that that is covered. The last point was people asking about long-range planning. And yes, down the road, we will be doing some projects. We have a substantial reserve fund, and we're not going to ever let a catastrophe happen again. We have the protocols in place for natural disasters, for things like tornadoes, things where there's outages of power and services, and any kind of risk. I would say we didn't plan for the pandemic, but for other types of contaminations, we do have backup plans, and we have coordinating plans with our neighbor communities. The pandemic, you should just know that there's no sense of any kind of viruses in the water or any kind of risks to public health as a result of that. And we are operations-wise in perfect sync. We have worked out a cooperative agreement with DPW and water to make sure that we cover everything. I could go on, but those were the key questions. And again, I do have the skills of planning, the financial controls, the forecasting to do this job and to plan for the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. And that's my expertise. I would like your vote and appreciate your considering this message. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Bringhurst, and I am running for RTM in Precinct 3. I am running for RTM because I want to help Walpole grow and meet the challenges of the future in a way that maintains its character as a great place to live, work, and raise a family. I think the keys to that future will include revitalizing downtown with local businesses and redesigned public space, increasing the affordability of our housing, and maintaining strong schools and municipal services. I am ready to tackle the difficult and complex issues that come before town meeting and work with my fellow RTMs to produce results that will benefit our town both now and in the future. My name is Ryan Bringhurst, and I would really appreciate your vote for RTM for Precinct 3. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jane Bergen. I'm running for re-election to Precinct 3. Prior to this position, I was also an RTM in Precinct 7 for about 15 years. I bring to the position background. My job for 30 years with Verizon was a project manager. I've also been very active in the town as a volunteer with the Walpole Scholarship Foundation, the Walpole Computer Foundation Board, the Friends of the Walpole Public Library Board, and have been very active in our church, the United Church in Walpole. I've lived in Walpole for over 40 years with my husband, Hunt. We raised our 3 kids here. They all attended Walpole Public Schools, and we were very happy with them. I bring to the job an open mind. I listen to all sides of an issue. I attend the meetings faithfully and the prep sessions. And I try to keep in mind everybody's needs and try to balance what everyone's requirements and needs are. So I would greatly appreciate your vote in June, and thank you so much for listening.
Hello, friends and neighbors. My name is Audrey Grace, and I'm running for re-election for RTM in Precinct 6. I have lived in Walpole for 8 years, and for the past 3 years have served Precinct 6 as an RTM. My role as an RTM I take very seriously. My job, I see, is to represent the best interest of everyone in this precinct and everyone in the town of Walpole. I do my research before making any decisions on behalf of my precinct and behalf of my town. I watch every meeting and hearing leading up to town meeting. I do my work to reach out to my community members. I am responsive and I'm transparent in my decision making, and I hope to continue to do so and represent Precinct 6 to the best of my ability for the next 3 years. So I hope you vote for me. If you haven't done so, pick up your ballot or request an early ballot by mail or an absentee ballot to make sure you're able to vote in our next town's election. And again, I hope that you vote for me, Audrey Grace, in Precinct 6. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Frank Kenney, and I'm running for RTM in Precinct 7 because I'm committed to representing the needs of the residents of the precinct and the community by thoroughly researching all the issues and ensuring that the current and future planning is aligned with Walpole's needs. My experience in the funeral industry provides background in listening carefully to make informed decisions, and having developed relationships with many different people and engaging diverse groups to reach consensus supports my candidacy. As a Walpole resident for 35 years and having raised 3 children, it's important to give back to the community. I have researched several issues over the years and will continue to do so to provide positive growth within our community, and I would really appreciate your consideration and your vote, and I thank you.
My name is Philip Shaharevsky, and I am running for RTM member in Precinct 7. My wife and I have lived in Walpole for over 40 years, and we raised our family here, and our children attended the Walpole Public Schools. I've been an RTM member for over 20 years. I'm very active in Walpole, currently serving as a member of the Planning Board and the Walpole Housing Partnership. I am also currently serving as the president of the Friends of the Walpole Public Library, co-chair of Walpole Green, and president of the Walpole Peace and Justice Group. Walpole is a wonderful place to live. We are fortunate to have such good municipal services like our school department, our senior center, the library, the recreation facilities, and all of our town departments. With the COVID-19 epidemic, Walpole will have challenges with revenues. We will need to balance how we retain these critical services and how to best support our residents in their needs. I pledge to study the articles and issues that come before Walpole Town Meeting, get input from Walpole boards and people, and make the decision that I think is best for Walpole. I've been honored to have been an RTM member all these years, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
My name is Richard Pila, and I'm running for re-election to town meeting to continue to serve the people of Precinct 7. During my 6 years on town meeting, my primary focus has always been to make prudent decisions on behalf of the taxpayers. As a member of town meeting, I never shied away from asking tough questions, but I also offered suggestions on how our government can run more efficiently and more responsibly. In calling attention to our current budgetary process, I offered as an alternative zero-based budgeting, but that fell on deaf ears. But given the economic situation we find ourselves in today, government on all levels need to really sharpen their pencils. In my capacity as chairman of the Old Town Hall Reuse Committee, I stated from the very beginning that we needed to come up with alternative uses for that building, which is Walpole's most historic and significant structure. Those uses needed to be financially feasible so that we could not only make the necessary repairs to Old Town Hall, but to be able to afford operating expenses going forward, and without having to go to the taxpayers for them to incur more debt. As the town's representative on the Norfolk County Advisory Board, I have asked why the county has its own pension system rather than participate in that of the Commonwealths. The state's pension system generates greater returns than that of Norfolk County. As a result, Walpole does not receive the returns that it would if it was in the state pension system. On Saturday, June 27th, will be our town elections, and I'm asking for your vote. And if I am reelected, I will continue to diligently work on your behalf. Thank you, and God bless America.